So, welcome back to another episode of Living the Sky Life. Next up in my sibling series is Chelsea Waxler. And I am really excited to talk to her because she is in her 20s and as is her brother. So, it's always nice to get a perspective from varying ages, as you guys have heard on all the other episodes. It's nice to get perspective from all genders and all ages. So, Chelsea, welcome to the podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, before we get started, I always like to ask everybody to give me a little bit of background about you personally, and then maybe you can share some things about your brother, Braxton. So, what's
Okay.
going on with you?
Oh gosh. So I'm Chelsea. I live in Columbus, Indiana, so not too far from you,
Hmm.
with my fiance, Chris. And my brother, as you mentioned, Braxton, he is now 20 years old. And so I've had the pleasure of watching him grow up as his older sibling. There's just the two of us. So it's been a pretty close relationship there. Um, about me. Okay. I am the founder of Kindred Ties Therapy here in Columbus. So after kind of navigating school and trying to decide where my heart was lying as far as kind of what I wanted to do day to day, I was just really drawn to autism services. And so, my story kind of is a full circle in that I ended up kind of making my way back to the therapies that I saw my brother having, and kind of supporting families in my community. So that's been really exciting. Fun things. I'm a cat mama, and a huge IU basketball fan, go Hoosiers. And so, yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So, what does the services that is it a company? Do you have other therapists working under you, or what is it that
Yeah,
you're doing and offering?
great question. Yeah, so I'm
Hmm.
a BCBA, or a board certified behavior analyst. And so
Okay.
I do have some registered behavior technicians, or RBTs, working under me. And we are a smaller clinic, just trying to provide a little, group and quality therapy that we can, in our community. So yeah, that's a little
Yeah,
bit about us.
it's so hard to find any therapies anymore. It seems like even when Skylar was 3 and we were kind of getting out of first steps and we were looking
Yeah,
for ABA was really new. So we had someone come to our house actually at that point. But even speech was one of the hardest to get services on because the wait lists were so long and there just weren't enough therapists to go around. So I
yeah.
imagine, just anyone opening any kind of services, let alone ABA, is really needed in
Yeah.
Columbus for sure, and in our area. We don't have much for Indiana services, as people have heard me complain.
Yes, I know. I agree. And it's funny you mentioned that too, with Skylar being kind of similar to Braxton's
Hmm.
age. Yeah, I think these therapies have definitely, immersed and kind of grown as the need and demand has happened. So yeah.
Hmm. Well, with him being 5 years younger than you, and like you said, you saw all the therapies he was going through. And
Yeah.
remind me, is he nonverbal or is he fully
Yeah.
verbal?
So
And where is he on the spectrum?
great question. So he is fully verbal now.
Okay.
We had kind of the typical regression story with Braxton. So when he was younger, he was babbling, beginning to speak, and then we lost all of that. So we were kind of doing sign and things. Through all of his therapies, have grown to him being fully verbal now. I would say he's on the more moderate side of autism. We definitely have our little quirks and things. And I think too, just as far as schooling and things, when we were looking at where he would kind of land. We're not at the typical 12th grade reading level and things like that.
Hmm.
So just kind of having to navigate those things.
Gotcha. So you
Yeah.
saw all of the therapies that he was doing and just kind of probably drugged to some of that stuff. Even though you were older than him, I'm sure you
Yeah.
had your fair share of waiting rooms and have people come in and out of your house and all of
Yeah.
that. So were you kind of always an integral part of raising him, sort of? It seems like the older
Yeah.
siblings just kind of take on this protector role and they want to help out and be a second mama kind of to him.
Yep.
Was that how you guys were growing up?
Yes, I definitely was, especially when he was born, just so eager to be the helper. I wanted to be his second little teacher. But yeah, I was, definitely wanting to learn these things. So I wanted to sit in on his sessions. I was lucky enough to be able to, especially early on, and just being inspired by these people who would come in and just get my brother to say things that we were working on so hard and they could do it so
Hmm.
quickly. And yeah, I think it was just kind of something where I saw what was the progress there, and was really inspired by it.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Did your relationship change for better or for worse as you kind of got into teen years? I'm sure there's a point with any sibling, autistic or not, where you're like, you're bugging me. Like, I need my space, stay out of my stuff, my room, like whatever. Did you
Yeah.
guys ever kind of fall in and out of, spending time together and
Sure.
come back
Yeah,
into
that's a
that?
good question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so definitely when he was younger, I was just wanting to, play with the cute baby and see all those things. I would say it kind of got difficult for us. And being too that I'm 8 years older, it was never
Oh,
something where
you're
I was
8.
really,
Okay. I thought you were
yeah.
5. Sorry.
Oh, no, you're good. So it was something where we weren't really always playing the same things, but I did not have that typical relationship of being able to pick on my brother or kind of
Mm-hmm.
that sarcasm, just because, he may not understand exactly what that is or what I'm saying. But no, it kind of went to not annoyance, but just recognizing I had my busy schedule with school and my extracurriculars. And, my parents were very much at that time navigating what are we going to do long term? What does that look like? Graduation plan, therapies, independent living, like what's the goal for him? So they were kind of in that realm, and I was off doing my own thing, getting prepped for college and things. But now our relationship's great. It's like I have a really cool friend. He's just the coolest dude. And it's kind of like I'm not as cool anymore since he's, a young adult. I'm not the cool sister that he like gets excited to hang out with, but we definitely have our times too. So
So now, did your parents, was there a point that they brought you in on the conversations about the future? Because again, that's something that I get asked a lot about. Like if I had that discussion with my daughter,
yeah,
Kendall, she's only 18. I mean, we've talked about things, but
yeah,
as I've said on other episodes, my goal is to have his trust in place, which we do, and like figure out the future stuff and lay it all out. And hopefully he's already living somewhere else if that's the plan, or involved in other programs if that's the plan. And she just kind of has to oversee it when we're not here to do
yeah,
it. I don't expect her to jump into mothering him. That's not
yeah.
fair. I want her to kind of have her own life. So have they brought you into that conversation, and when did that kind of occur?
Yeah, absolutely. So they brought me in as far as just understanding autism really early on. So
Okay.
I was 11 when he was diagnosed at age 3. And that actually, we had a really great opportunity to go to a like 2-week ABA training, just kind of about autism after the diagnosis. And they had a sibling portion. So I was brought along
Oh, that's cool.
near the end. And so they were kind of explaining, this is what your brother has. And I was watching the therapy happen as my parents are learning about it too. So I kind of got the autism kind of explanation there. As I've gotten older, obviously, I'm kind of, taking on a little bit more of that guardianship role. We have talked, as far as guardianship, wills, things like that, making sure I understand his benefits, especially through the waiver services that Indiana fortunately has, and just understanding how to navigate the Social Security aspect and all of these things that are inevitably going to fall on me. And that's something I appreciate you bringing up, because the sibling relationship is the longest relationship most people with disabilities have.
Right.
And so I just, especially as I kind of navigate my own sibling support, and I try to definitely incorporate that into what I offer because that's my lived experience. Just making sure that parents feel comfortable communicating these things earlier on. Don't wait until you're kind of reaching an age or there's a situation,
Hmm.
but just kind of including that sibling throughout, because otherwise they don't really know what's going to be expected of them, and you can't just assume that they know that all of these things will eventually land on you, or how you want that relationship to be. Like you mentioned, like you don't expect Kindle to do that, all of it, right? But just kind of where does she fit in, and just having that open conversation I think is huge. And
Hmm.
I'm thankful my parents have kind of included me in on that, so I know what to expect, and I'm honestly eager and so blessed and hopeful that I get to take on that role for him as I move forward. There's what else would I really, do at my family? That's just how we roll. Like I'm going to do that for him because
Hmm.
I don't want to watch him have to navigate things without somebody that he can trust and love. So yeah,
Is that a conversation? This is kind of a side note, I guess I was thinking,
yeah.
since you're engaged, is that something that you brought up to your boyfriend once you knew it was kind of a long-term thing and you guys were going to be together, just about your brother? And did you educate him just the quirks or the whatever? So when he came to your house for the
Yeah.
first time and met Braxton, he wasn't surprised by anything,
Yes. Well, yeah, if you could tell in our photo, Braxton, his demeanor, he's a
Yeah, he's
6'3"
tall.
giant compared to me. So yeah, I think he can be kind of quiet and shy with people he doesn't know, but in his own home, he is rocking back and forth and stimming through the house. And so it is a personality and a presence. So I definitely gave him the forewarning on that. But yeah, it's actually really sweet that you brought that up. So my fiance, Chris, he back when was talking to his parents about wanting to propose to me, his parents kind of brought that up, and we had talked about it from time to time. But his parents brought that up of, you realize this is going to be, a long-term thing with their brother as well. And which makes me teary-eyed, but he just said, I know it's a package deal. I'm in on it. So he knows that, long-term, it's going to be the two of us. And so, yeah, he welcomes that with open arms, which I'm really appreciative of.
Yeah. I mean, we talk about that a lot on episodes and just between parents when parents are single and they're trying to date. When I met my current husband, that was the exact words I used.
Fabulous.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome.
Oh my gosh.
But I use that same, terminology, like, we're a package deal. So if this scares you at all, then this is just, it's okay. You have every right to be scared or not want to sign on for this. But I just need to know that ahead of time, because I just don't want anyone around us that flinches at anything. So, when we think of siblings, that's something that is also future planning that we don't realize. It has to be a discussion. You can't just assume that your partner is going to want to be an avid part of having your brother move in with you guys or whatever it is. Some people are not okay with that. So sadly, you have to talk about it in advance. So
I know. And I appreciate you saying that too. Like, if there is that hesitation, then it's just probably not going to be the right fit. Honestly, I hate saying that, but this is, our lives and our lived experiences, and more than anyone, that, like, I'm not going to change what we have going. And so you kind of got to fit the mold of what's needed. Yeah.
Well, Chris sounds amazing. So
yeah, he's great. He's great.
That's fantastic. Well, so, is there something that you've learned? Obviously, you learned a lot about ABA, and it struck your interest in making that your career and helping families with autism for the future. Is there something that you can really hone in on that you learned from growing up with your brother and in that household, maybe from your parents or maybe just about yourself? I mean, the word resilient is thrown around a lot, and I think that is so fitting for siblings, because and empathy and all of those things. Do you find that you're just a different person in the world because of the amount of all of those skills that you inherited from just living and learning to navigate around someone that needs extra help, if that makes any sense?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I feel like this is something where it sounds like I'm like tooting my own horn. But
you should.
But I think I'm definitely super empathetic. And what I mean by that, and I know that, like you said, that word's thrown around a lot. You have no idea what's going on behind everyone's closed doors or what's going on in their personal lives. And I think us autism families know that more than anything, right? We are the family that had the meltdown in the car, but we're pulling up to grandma and grandpa's and we're going into this family event and we've got to pull together. And I think, just understanding that there's a lot of struggle happening for everybody. And two, I think I really want to make sure that I am, implementing kindness wherever I go and promoting that. I always kind of root for the underdog. There's kids, and especially when you're in the middle school and high school years, just the kid getting picked on, or the kid who is, has a less fortunate situation and they're getting teased. I'm always going to be the one to speak up. And I'm always going to be the one to make sure that, hey, they're being rude, but you can come sit with me. Because I don't know what's going on in people's lives. And so I just really try to make sure that I'm, supporting others and just making sure that they felt seen and heard. And I think that's a really big part too, especially with people with disabilities. I think they kind of get excluded a lot from conversations. So acknowledging someone at the special education classroom walks by, I'm not going to ignore it. I'm going to wave and smile just like I would with my friends. And so I think that's a part of it where you see the kind of perspective and almost become protective of people that maybe are kind of excluded from the typical conversations and inclusion. So
I mean, it's not something that you're inherently taught. It's just you develop that. And that's why I think siblings are just so remarkable. And I mean, I hate that you guys have to go through a lot of the things where our attention sometimes is split up and not fairly evenly distributed sometimes in the home, but just everything that you guys have to go through and put on a brave face, it really speaks volumes of you as adults, because especially going into the industry, so to speak, with therapy and
Yeah.
things, I think you could bring so much to the families that come to your facility, because you can relate on a different level. And so, like you said, if they pull up and the mom, you can tell, is probably sweating and crying because she got her hair pulled on the drive or something, you guys don't react. Whereas some people that are in this industry that don't have personal experience, they look at it like, this is 8 to 4, I'm out of here at 4, and I'm just gonna deal with this
Yeah.
kid hitting me today. They just don't necessarily have the compassion that they need. They're annoyed.
Yeah.
And so I think you can at least relate that to your RBTs and to people that
Yeah.
work for you, and maybe give them a different perspective
Yeah.
on
I
the
definitely
parents. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely strive for that. And I think, I sometimes have the phone calls of, hey, we're running a little bit late today. It's been a morning. I don't need further explanation. I got you. Like,
Yep.
I can understand what your morning is. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think too, with that being said, I really try to focus on the family as a unit. I think a
Right.
lot of times with certain therapies, yeah, you can drop them off and they get, XYZ therapy, and then they get in the car and you get a little written sheet and that's it. Like, you don't get much explanation, or how can I use this at home? And so I was fortunate enough to see Braxton doing in-home therapy, centered based. So I got to kind of see all of it, which helped us carry that over. And I like to see what's going on. How can I help? And then also the sibling side too. That's a big part of why I kind of started Kindred. I wanted to support the family, and that includes the siblings too. So kind of making sure they have an avenue to talk about the good and not so good. And I think that's an important piece too, is just acknowledging that there's sometimes the not so good, and having a safe space to communicate that. A lot of times, I read your book, and I like the part too where you talk about how we kind of have that perfectionist, the siblings do. And I related so much when you're talking about just kind of that anxiety of, I need to be a straight A student and do all these things. That's a lot of pressure sometimes. And I think we're not going to disclose that to you all as parents. So just having a safe avenue. And sometimes my friends especially didn't really have younger siblings. I was kind of the odd one out, or then also having a sibling with disabilities. And so having a safe space with people who can understand that situation, and kind of relate to it too, is big. So yeah, thanks for saying that about.
Well, I mean, I guess on that note, on that topic of, maybe parents don't know necessarily, at least in my experience with Kendall, she never complains, and she never,
Yeah.
even when we have to revert plans to something else because it's just not a good day for Skylar, and I'll go with her, and then my husband will bring Skylar home or whatever.
Yeah.
She doesn't complain. She just kind of chalks it up as like, this is just my life. This is what it is.
Right.
Is there anything that maybe your mom and dad did, or how do parents engage with their kids? Because I could ask her a million times, and I have, like, are you upset because of your brother this, or are you just hiding in your room because he pulls your hair and you just want to be away from it? And that was her method of dealing, I guess. She just
Hmm.
always went to her room. And then as soon as he goes to bed, she knows that he's in bed, and she comes right out of her room and hangs out with us. She just didn't want to be around it. In high school and stuff. She just was sick of dealing with being hit or
Bless her
whatever.
heart.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I don't fault her at all for that, but it makes me sad as a mom, because I feel like I should have done more, and I should have like forced her to talk to me or whatever. So is there anything your parents did that made you feel okay to go to them, or would you wish that they had come to you more, thinking back on it,
Yeah.
like, and asked you how you were feeling? What do we do? What do moms and dads do?
Well, I cannot fathom raising a teenager. So first, yeah, that's a huge thing. They probably don't want to talk to you regardless.
Right.
But yeah, no, that's a great question. I definitely think the checking in is important. I don't think it will typically be led by a sibling, honestly. We know you guys have a lot on your plate. So to then come to
Fair.
you and say, hey, this was annoying, That's difficult. Like, we know that you've got a lot going on. And
Mhm.
so I never really felt comfortable, saying that. I think later on, and maybe you'll experience this too, it was more so once I was kind of established on my own a little bit and kind of removed from the family unit that I could share, like, hey, that did kind of bug me. Or just having those healthy conversations. But when we're both removed from that type of situation, and this sounds like it's like super traumatic, but just saying, like, hey, when my band competitions were going on and you guys never showed up because it was too loud for Braxton, that kind of hurt my feelings. And they were able to be like, oh gosh, I can see how that happened. I think in the moment it would have been like, well, we're doing this. It can kind of be almost accusatory in that manner. And so I
Right.
think it was healthier to talk about it later on. But yeah, I think just checking in if you can. I think if anything, if they're not comfortable sharing, they'll appreciate the reach out.
Yeah.
And then just really too, and in your book you mentioned that you guys had kind of like your movie nights and your time after Skylar was asleep. And I think that's so important, is just setting aside that time with your quote quote typical kiddo.
Hmm.
Not my favorite term, but
Right.
just making sure that there are those moments where the attention is on them. And two, I think there are obviously accommodations that have to be made for the sibling with autism, right? And we know that. But I think if there is a very important day, so let's say Kindle's graduation or my graduation was a big one, where I just heard, unfortunately, a lot of conversation be still about Braxton. And as much as I was just, I want him there, I want him to be happy as well. Can I just not hear about it on my day? If that kind of makes sense. I
That
know it
makes
sounds
total sense. No, it
selfish.
doesn't. And that's the stuff that we need to
Yeah.
hear. And I think that I'm making it all about her. I mean, the big open house and the
Yeah.
party. And I asked her, do you want him at your graduation? Because if not, I mean, Josh is always willing to like step
Yeah.
aside, which isn't fair. But she understood that no parent's going to want to miss the graduation. And so
Yeah.
they sat on the floor in his stroller and they stayed kind of away. He was there to see her, and then
Yeah.
and we told her they're gonna leave after you walk across the stage. And luckily she was early because she was the top 5 in her class, so she went
Ooh,
across
yes,
first.
girl.
I know, perfectionism. But so they left, but she knew I was there, her grandparents were there, everybody was there, so I think
Yeah.
she was okay with it. But you make a very valid point, because I think we think we're making it about them, and we end up talking about Skylar or Braxton in your case. So
Yes.
I
Yeah.
don't
But
even
just,
think about it.
yeah, and we know. And I think that that's just like a very minor thing, right? But it's just, I think in hindsight, those are the types of things that are just kind of the little pain points of like, that's kind of
Hmm.
another thing that we have to kind of think about. But it's, I mean, not the end of the world. It's just something that can kind of, I guess, pick at you a little bit. And then as I got
Hmm.
older, those were the things that I almost resented, were those types of moments. But yeah.
But I think it's helpful for you when you got comfortable to say it, like even if it was just this year or last year, to say,
Yeah.
hey, that kind of upset me. Because if we don't know, we can't apologize. Like, it would kill me if Kendall's like 40 and she's bringing up a dance recital from when she was 16 and I didn't know, because I want the opportunity not to defend not being there or whatever it is,
Yep.
but to say, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. If I could change that
Yeah.
or do it over, I would. And I hope that that would be enough for her to go, okay, I understand. I just wanted you to know how it felt. Not that
Yeah.
I can fix it or repeat it, differently, but I
Yeah.
think
I
it's
think,
important to bring up.
yeah, and I won't speak for her obviously, but I think that's just the thing. We don't need the apology. I think that's, you guys are doing the best you can. And we
I know,
see
but we
that,
still
right?
feel bad.
If anybody, we're seeing how hard you guys are working and all that you're putting into it. So um yeah, I think if anything, it's just almost like a release and then popping that balloon and letting it go. Like, yep, that's it.
That's
So
fair. That's a
yeah.
fair statement. Aw. So now that Braxton is conversational and able to communicate with you, are there things that you guys like doing? Do you do things with him as adults? Like, do you take him to dinner, or do you hang out with him, or do you guys not have that kind of relationship? I didn't know if he's comfortable going
No.
places with just you.
Yep. Yeah. So that's a great question. Yep. I definitely watch him on the weekends. My parents
Well, that's
finally
nice.
started going on trips and things. And yeah, I definitely wrote that in my notes too. Just back in the day, it used to be Braxton. That was their world. And
Yep.
so, our social events We're going to Thanksgiving, and Lord, we were holding on for dear life to get there. So it wasn't very relaxing when you think about all the things that had to go on prior, the food prep and the packing. But yeah, so they finally have started to kind of focus on their relationship too, which is really cool
Love
for
it.
me to see. So I'm more than happy to watch Braxton. If it means my mom can go celebrate her birthday and not have to have that stress and things like that. So yeah, we like to play board games. He's super into board games, which is great
Aw.
because that's what I grew up on. So I'm like, heck yeah. And he's really into good music. Skylar too, I saw in your book, he loves some hip hop and things. So we like to have some dance parties. He likes to swing on a sensory swing while I'm down there with him. But yeah, so we like to play games. I would say he is more of a homebody, which I'm not mad at. I'm a homebody too. But we've gone to movies together and things like that too.
Sounds like
And
he's living
Starbucks.
his best life.
Yes, Starbucks. I made him a Starbucks monster. He loves Starbucks now. Sorry,
Oh,
mom and
that's
dad.
funny.
But
It's so
yeah.
funny if you could ask him or if he would just say how he's feeling, but he's probably like, finally, the parents leave and like you and I can hang out. Like, why have they been hanging
Yeah.
around so long? They should have gone on
Yes.
dates long ago. Oh, geez, that is funny. Well, we talked a little bit about your parents and things, just having conversations with them, when you're an adult or later in life. Is there anything that you obviously they did an amazing job with both you and your brother and are still doing an
Thanks.
amazing job. Is there anything you'd like to say to them, if they're listening, just about them as parents to Braxton and to you? And
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
to shout out
I
to
know
your
my
parents.
I know my parents are listening. My mom is a huge fan of you, Lord. So
Oh, I love
she's
her.
definitely listening. No, my parents, in the most PG way I can say this, kicked absolute booty with my brother.
Aw.
And I just think everything we've been able to achieve, both he and I, is thanks to them and their hard work and just really focusing on, improving his life. We moved states, we sought services, we fought IEP meetings. I mean, it's been a journey. And so I'm just honestly super, super proud of our little family unit for all we've done and gotten through together, and done it with love and laughing and just really trying to stay strong. And there's been moments, and I've seen them struggle and I've seen those hard times. But just knowing that they're going to work together to navigate that all has been really inspiring. Especially as I, move into my own relationships and marriage and things like that. Just knowing that there are going to be hard times, but being able to communicate that in a healthy way and including the village, the team of family is so important. And sometimes you have to make your own village. I mean, we had family members, especially early on, who weren't really super receptive or understanding of what we were going through. So
Mhm.
just finding that community has been really great. And yeah, I'm really appreciative for them. They've really tried their best to just make our lives as easy as possible with all the nuances and oddities that we have to navigate. So
Yeah, it says a lot for you to come out um, with a lot of ideas and how to have a strong marriage just from watching them and everything that they've
yeah,
gone through. It gives you a really strong foundation for your marriage. And then eventually, if you guys have children as a parent, I mean, I would hope that my daughter eventually says, gosh, how did my mom handle all of this? Especially if she has neurotypical kids and none with special needs, which I would hope for her. But even still, if she did have a child with special needs, I would hope that she would at least lean on a few things that I did and maybe go, well, I'm going to do this a little different than my mom did, but that we give them a foundation at least for the future and they're not just going at it blindly. It's important to
yeah,
me that she see Josh and I laugh, that she sees us
yep,
disagree on things because I don't want to hide any of that from her and make her think that marriage is all giggles and like we never have disagreements because that's not normal. Um,
right,
so I would hope that we've at least through all of the things that we've gone through that are not typical, that
yep.
she would, at least have taken some good things from it.
I'm
So,
sure she has. I'm sure she has.
as have you. Was there
Thanks.
anything you want to add before we end just about growing up with Braxton and things that you appreciate and love about him so much?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Um, I would say, and I know this can be a strong statement, but I just appreciate how he is almost beautifully naive to the evil in this world.
Yes.
He is authentically himself 110%. And I think that is something that others who maybe don't know him or just don't understand our world through, the lens of autism can look at it as wrong or different. But just knowing that he is going to show his emotions on his sleeve, and you're going to know when he's happy because he's going to be full body rocking and stimming and being excited, or when he's sad, he's able to show you those things. And so he just hasn't been kind of tarnished by society's perception of what is normal. And
Mm-hmm.
that's so beautiful to me. And I'm so appreciative that he hasn't lost that. I think with that too, he's just so loving and not afraid to tell us. And thankfully,
Aw.
we are at that point now where we can hear him. But he will tell me he loves me and how cool I am. And I mean, what 20-year-old brother is telling his sister, "Sissy, I love you. You're so cool."
Oh,
Okay, I'll take that any day. And I think if anything, he's just really taught me and my family to find enjoyment in the little things.
right.
He can get so excited about having Chinese on Sunday. That is what he looks forward to all week. And he, goes to bed at the same time every night, and he's got his little routines, but he is so happy with what he has and the comforts that he's found. And I think that's important. Our life doesn't have to be this grand, representation of all these big moments. It can just be being content and happy with what you, have. And he's just so happy with, his little like characters that he loves and his videos and video games. He's found those things that bring him joy, and he's not afraid to just fully enjoy them, which is really great. Yeah.
Oh, that is so sweet. I agree with you 1,000%. And my favorite part of every day is waking Skylar up in the morning or going into his room when he's awake, because he jumps up in his bed and we have a Dutch door. He'll lean on the Dutch door
Yeah.
with a huge smile on his face. And we're like, "Good morning." And he starts laughing. I mean, every morning it's the same thing. He always is happy. Like, that's going to be the best day of his life. And then tomorrow's going to be the best day of his life. He doesn't stress about anything. He just,
Yeah.
he smiles through everything. So
I
I
love
agree.
that.
I love it
I
so
love
much.
that.
Yeah. Oh, well, I hope to meet Braxton someday because you guys are not
Oh
that far.
my
Maybe we'll
gosh.
have to try to do a play date with the guys.
Oh my gosh, that'd be the best. I would
Does
love that.
with music at least, but does Braxton like Elmo? Because he has to like Elmo's World or they can't do the TV
Does
thing.
Braxton love Elmo? We are Elmo family. We
Hey,
love Elmo. Yes.
well, let's schedule it. Well,
Yes.
Chelsea, thank you so very much for your time. I appreciate everything that
Gosh.
you're doing in Indiana to help people with services for ABA. And I will link up any way to connect with you and your business if people in the area want to check you out. So
Okay.
I will do all of that. But thank you so much.
No, thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Take care. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.